Okay, go on, Alfonso.
Well, thank you, Angela. Thank you very much for the invitation to this seminar, webinar of Metaphorum. Thank you, all of you, to be here. My name is Alfonso Reyes, and now I'm the rector of Universidad de Ibagué. My background is in computer science and physicist, and I did my PhD with Raúl in England, and we have been working together with Raúl for many years, also with Angela, and we have shared with some of you uh, in spaces and different projects. So I think I know most of you. I will share my presentation I have prepared for the meeting. So Angela, I want to be sure that the presentation is okay. Can you see my presentation? Angela?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, we can see your presentation perfectly. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, just to be sure.
Yeah.
Well, so the purpose of this talk is to share with all of you a transformation process in a small private university in Colombia, in the middle of Colombia, in a city called Ibagué, where I am right now. This process started about 10 years ago. And what I would like to do is to talk about how this process has been doing, where are we now, and where we want to be. And you probably will see that most of what we have reached and done so far, in the back of the mind, there is systemic thinking and most of the system practice as well. The title I chose is this one, A New Organizational Form for a Trans-disciplinary University. So first of all, first a few words about our university. I know that some of you know the university. In fact, some of you visited Universidad de Ibagué some years ago when we actually delivered a WASC. I think it was in 2014. And this is a small private university. You can see in the map that I'm showing, the university is located in the middle of the country, in a region called Tolima, and the capital of Tolima is Ibagué. Ibagué is about, it has 700,000 inhabitants, and the department of Tolima has about 3 million inhabitants. So it's not so big. This university is a private one, was created by a set of local entrepreneurs. It was created 40 years ago. This year, we are in our 40th year, actually. But one of the particularities of this university is that it was created and is devoted to low-income families. So our students come from that economical and social background. About 85 to 87% of all our students are from low-income families. This is not very common in Colombia for private universities. This university, actually the campus is very nice. You can see some of the pictures of the campus of the university. We have 5 different schools: engineering, law, humanities, science, and management. We have 17 academic programs and 187 full-time professors. We have about 5,000 students and about 20,000 alumni in these 40 years. This university, and it is one of the processes we started in 10 years ago in 2009. We started the process to increase the quality of the university as a whole. In Colombia, we have a quality assurance system for education in general and for universities in particular. It is optional. Not all universities has to be accredited, but for now it's optional. So the University of Ibagué started autonomously the process of, for accreditation of the programs. In 2009, we have 2 programs accredited. Right now, we have the 85% of all the programs are fully accredited. But also, we accredited the whole institution with a high quality stamp certificate for the Colombian government. To give you some data regarding that, in Colombia we have about 300 universities, 300, and only 27% are nationally accredited. So Universidad de Ibagué is one of those. In fact, was the first one to be accredited in the department. Right now, there is another one, the public university. So there are 20 universities offering programs in Ibagué, and only 2 are accredited with a high quality standard. The author process we started in 2009. Was a whole curriculum change in all the programs. And here you can see what we did after about 3 years of discussions and talking with all the professors of the university. We managed to reduce all the programs from 10 semester to 8 semester. And after doing that, we add 1 semester at the beginning and add 1 semester at the end. And this is the whole structure of all the programs right now. So the first semester is related with the core curriculum for the whole university. So during the first semester, all students of the university take exactly the same courses, and they start to develop general competencies, independent of which career they wanted to pursue. Now we are doing that for the whole year, the first year. Now in the second year, they develop according to the particular school they join. They have to take a core courses for that particular school: engineering, law, humanities, and so on. Then they start to take courses particular to each academic program. And then by the end of their studies, they do an articulation with master program. So they can take, by the end of their career, some of the courses from master programs as part of the undergraduate curriculum. And so when they finish their career, they can join the master program and they can validate the courses they took during the undergraduate program and continue to the master program. So it is a way of doing an articulation of undergraduate at the end of the studies with the master programs. And the last semester perhaps is the most particular one. that is called Peace and Region Semester. Semestre de Paz y Región is the name in Spanish. And this is quite interesting because during that full semester, 4 months, 16 weeks, the students have to go out the city, the capital of the department, and they have to live in a small municipality. They have to live there. And they have to live with um, mates from different academic programs. And during the whole semester, they have to uh, work with people from that community in order to help them for their local development. This is the whole structure of all the 17 academic programs of the university. Uh, we started the whole program about 10 years ago. Peace and region in particular, we started 10 years ago, in fact, sending students, a group of students to 4 small municipalities where I managed to convince the mayors of those municipalities, because they were friends of mine, to receive them, because I wanted to do a pilot project with them. And after that happened, starting the second semester of the program, I started to receive calls from the rest of the mayors. They wanted to have students working with them. And the reason for that is because for those small municipalities in a country like Colombia, for a mayor to have very well formed people working with them is very difficult, because good professionals, they don't tend to go to small municipalities. They prefer to stay in the big cities. And those students that belong to this program already finished all their courses, because this is the last semester. So they were almost professionals. So they were very well received by the mayors and very well received by the community. After that, what we decided to do to expand the program was to formally sign an agreement with each mayor that wanted to be part of the program. And in this agreement, the mayor has to agree in taking care of the living expenses of the students we sent to them. And we, as a university, uh, agree to help the mayor in developing the development program for the full period, 4-year period, or if they already have a development program, we help them to prioritize the program and to select with them which problems, particular problems for that development program they wanted to improve and to develop. And by doing that, we choose the group of students and send them to the municipality, and we choose and assign particular professors who are the mentors and the advisors of the students during the whole semester. So normally what happened is that once a group of students go to a municipality and start working with the community in a particular project, they finish the semester delivering part of the solution they wanted to achieve. And then they give that solution to the next group that comes from the university to continue with the project. And when that second group finished in the second semester, to advance the development of the project, they do the same with the student group and so on. So from the point of view of the local mayor, they have continuously group of people improving in the participation of each of the projects we have chosen in a common way. From the point of view of the students, they have the opportunity to have this learning experience, not only of working in interdisciplinary groups to tackle a non-disciplinary problem and working with the people in that community in particular. Because they all, the students, most of them, as I mentioned before, comes from low-income families. This experience for them is quite revealing, it's quite important, because they very soon know and see that what they learn during uh, their studies in the university, they can put in place that knowledge in practice and help to change the life of people in that community directly. So they can actually see the impact of what they can actually can do as professionals. And the community in the municipalities love that and valorate that very much. So they treat the students in a very well manner. So this is like a symbiotic relationship between the community in the municipality, the students, and the mayor and his staff. This is a whole learning process from the point of view of the students. And this is one way in which this small private university actually reach all the department, because uh, our campus is in the city, but each semester we have students working in all the municipalities of the department. 10 years after we started with these four municipalities, now we have, I think, about 2,000 students that have passed through this program, and about 2,200 projects that they have actually uh, um, been working on. We reach all the 47 municipalities of the department. In the next semester, we will have 450 students going to the PAS and region semester. So we ran out of municipalities. We will start working with municipalities in northern departments, near, close to the Tolima region. Uh, so this has been quite a very nice experience from the point of view of the students, and from the point of view of how this university can actually have a permanent impact in the region. This program received a couple of national and international distinctions because the innovation that that we have actually reached in this program. There is something very interesting that is happening in the last 5 years, that we have seen that some of the students that finished the peace and region in a particular municipality, they go back to the university, get their diploma, and then they go back to the municipality to work for the mayor. So what is happening right now is that many of these students are actually hired by the local administration to work with them.
Also,
So we are actually improving the capacity of the municipality to dealing with this project. Yes, Angela.
we have a question from Igor.
Okay, Igor.
Oh, I would congratulate on the concept and on the implementation. But I was wondering, can you provide maybe some examples of these projects because they really sound interesting.
Oh, yes, sure. For instance, one of the municipalities wanted to fully develop a national program that was called uh, online government. And the program consisted that the mayor of a municipality used technology to deliver some of the services that the mayor provides to the citizen. So it was a technological problem at the beginning. So we decided to send a group of students in which it was a systems engineer, it was a psychologist, it was a law student, and it was an industrial engineer. And that was quite interesting because I was with them when the mayor explained to them the problem. They wanted that this e-government started to work involving the community. And I remember that the systems engineer said to the mayor, okay, that's no problem. Just give me the code and I can actually start to recoding the program and I can deliver you the right program so the people can actually start to the internet and use the services. But then the industrial engineer said, okay, that is important, but you have to change all the processes that actually are face to face in the major offices to adapt them for virtual communication and so on. So I can do the re-engineering of all the processes to deliver the services in an appropriate way. And then the law student said, okay, that is important, but if you don't change the regular norms you have in the major, you can actually validate the services you are providing to the people. So I can actually do something like that and so on. And the psychologist said, okay, but if you do not talk to the people and do some seminars and work with them to show that actually it's important for them to use this new way of communication to get the services from the mayor, this is not going to work. So the interesting thing of that first meeting is that each one of them just run to understand and explain how they understood the program from their particular disciplinary point of view. But they listen and saw that the other people explained the same problem in a totally different way. And they knew each other because all of them became were part of the same university. So they start to see and realize that the same problem could be actually described and understood in quite different ways. And after that, they start to join forces. And at the end, they deliver a project in which combined forces from the different disciplines they were in order to put in place this particular program. So Igor, this is one example of that, but we have examples in many other domains. For example, I remember another problem that has a group of people, actually a group of women, that they used to cultivate strawberries in the hills. But when they pick up the strawberries and put it in some bags, plastic bags, and then accumulate that and deliver the bags to the market by the end of the week, most of the strawberry were in bad way. It was like a juice because the pressure among the strawberries. So clearly the packing system was very bad and very costly. So what we did is that we sent a couple of students, one from mechanical engineer, and the other one was a systems engineer, computer science. So they start to work with the ladies, and what they did at the end is that they design and build a packing system for the strawberries using local materials so that the ladies could collect the strawberries without any problem. And by the end of the week, the strawberries were in good shape. And the computer science, what he did was a software with an app that helped them to communicate directly with the clients. So they skip all the intermediaries. So they didn't have to go to the market to sell the strawberries, and they have to sell it in a small price. And they start to try to deliver the strawberries directly to the clients of the municipality and municipalities around. This is another example of one of the projects. And others have been working with hospitals, others have been working with schools, and so on. So quite many different kind of projects. I don't know, Igor, if that clarifies the type of projects they actually do. Igor? I'm not sure if Igor actually is there. Angela?
Huh?
Igor?
Oh.
He seems to be there, but having problem with his microphone.
Oh, okay. But can you hear the explanation I did? The example of the projects. Angela?
No, we did, yes, excellent examples. I think that it was very, very interesting and clear.
Okay.
Yes,
So what you can imagine, at the starting point 10 years ago, the projects they developed were related to very low complex problems. But after 10 years, the complexity of the project has been starting to grow. And we are actually improving the methodological approach the students are using in those kind of projects. We are, for instance, using part of the design thinking approach from Stanford to actually deal with some of these projects. Okay, so this is the general structure of the university in the curriculum, in the academic programs. So we have been starting to do some distinctions, and this has been part of the discussions in WOSC as well, between multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity. So right now we are saying that multidisciplinarity consists of the additive viewpoint of different disciplinary views without crossing the borders to tackle problem situations, usually problems that are fragmented in disciplines. Sorry about the spelling of some words there. Interdisciplinarity allows people from different disciplines to work together by learning each other disciplinary languages and sharing methods in a coherent way. And some of the work people, students in the Peace and Region program actually work in an interdisciplinary way. But we think that transdisciplinarity emerges from a critical analysis of the methods, the theoretical frameworks, and even the epistemological ground of the disciplines vis-a-vis the problem situations they are facing, in order to build a new contextual language to propose innovative solutions that open new possibilities to solve or to dissolve the problem situation. So we are thinking that transdisciplinarity is a way of approaching complex problems. And that way of approaching them from people trained in different disciplines includes the developing of a particular contextual language that help them to understand and describe the problem situation they are facing. And by doing this developing of a language, they actually start to develop new distinction, new concepts, even new methods, and hopefully different proposals, innovative proposals to open up new possibilities to tackle that particular problem they are facing. So that is what we are thinking right now in doing these distinctions. Now, what we started to think is that by taking into account these distinctions, we realized that most of the students in the university were well prepared for a disciplinary way of approaching problem situations, even though they could actually approach them in a multidisciplinary way, but not in a transdisciplinary way. So our question was, how can we move the university to actually open up this space for a transdisciplinary way of learning? And that's when we came with the idea of doing some uh, radical transformation of the organization structure of the university. But to do that, I would like to mention some definition of three terms: organization, identity, and structure. And that comes from the work by Raul. An organization emerges when members of a collective produce a closed network of recurrent interactions or relations. And here, what we do is a distinction between a collective and an organization. So a collective is a group of people who actually can meet together in a regular way, but they not become an organization. When they start to become or to produce an organization, well, when they actually closed the network of their relations. So a closed network or closure means that the members of the collective develop their own decision rules and mechanisms for self-determination. So by using these rules, they actually decide who are part or not part of the collective. So the relationship of belonging is important for an organization to be built, to start. So this closure is quite important. When that closure happens, we said that organization emerges. So in systemic terms, we will say that an organization is organizationally closed, but informational open or open to energy transfer. So by taking that into account, the organization's identity is produced when a stable set of organizational relationships emerges. Those are forms of relations that stabilize across the time. So these relationships are constituted by a set of norms, values, and meanings that characterize the distinctions and practices that are shared by the members of the organization. So that is why the identity of an organization is closely related with what is called the culture of that particular organization. And this culture is stabilized uh, when more people in the organization share those norms, values, and meanings of what they do in the distinctions they do and the practices they actually carry out in the organization. So with that in mind, you can see that the identity of an organization is independent of the particular individuals involved in those interactions. They can be any as long as they satisfy those relationships. And that is quite interesting because in that terms, we can actually understand why a university like the Ibagué preserves its identity even though each semester we have different actors. Students finished and leave, other students comes in the university, some professors leave and others become new professors, new administrative staff join the university. But although people change, the identity of the university is preserved. And it is preserved because when a new professor, for instance, Pedro, joined the university as a professor, well, they signed a contract with the university, and when he started working or prepared to start working as a professor in university, he or she will actually embody that particular role, the role of a professor of that university. And we will start asking his or her colleagues how our classes delivery and how they prepare the syllabus and so on. So they will learn the way the role is deployed. And by doing that, they enter into the culture of the organization. And that's how the identity is preserved.
Alfonso, we have a question from Mike.
Yes, Mike.
Hi, Alfonso. It's actually related to the issue of the professors, because obviously the success of these projects, and particularly their continuation of one student group to another, is going to depend upon a lot upon the supervision they get.
Yes.
Yet a lot of academics are very reluctant to get their hands dirty and go and work on practical problems. So I was wondering, what percentage of the staff actually worked on these projects, whether you train staff to do the supervision of projects, or whether actually you employ specialist staff to supervise the projects, because their success must depend quite a bit on the staff.
Totally agree. They depend quite from the involvement of the professors in doing that kind of job. Yeah, what we did actually was an internal call to ask professors who were interested in participating in those kind of projects, like with the semester, Peace and Region semester. And we have like about 20% of the professors who wanted to be part of that project. So we start with them a training process, because as Mike mentioned, they have to develop particular skills to do that kind of mentorship in that kind of projects in municipalities. They have to learn how to work with people and so on. So after they finish the process, they become mentors of the students in the Peace and Region program. We also prepare the students because they have to do that in the last semester. But before that, in the 1 year before of that, we start preparing the students for sending them to the municipality, because they have to know what is the meaning of social management and public relationships, and depend on the topic they wanted to, they will go to work. We prepare them before that. I don't know, Mike, if I understood well and answered.
Yeah, and I understood that you put out a call and about 20% of the professors responded, and then they got the training. That's great. Did you meet any opposition in the university to this kind of proposal to send students on projects?
Yeah, of course. This is part of being a university. So debates are part of that, and professors who actually say this is nonsense and so on. But the point was keeping the push and the discussion alive. And at the end of the day, they just decide, okay, go on. And it was like a natural separation. But you see, Mike, 10 years after that, I came back to the university last October, after 4 years that I was in Los Andes University. And when I came back, I started to talk with professors regarding Peace and Region, because I wanted to know what was the state of the program at that moment. And I found that all professors, including those who were against, now are defending the program. That is it's quite interesting, that change in the perception of professors.
Alfonso, I have a question. Do you involve the citizens, the people in the municipalities who are benefiting from these projects? Do you involve them in assessing the impact of the projects?
That depends on the project, actually. We are, for instance, exploring, I think 3 years ago, we started to do that, to use this method, the community-based research, that actually comes from the works by Falsborda in Colombia and Paulo Freire in Brazil. In that method, we involve the community from the start. So it's not a project that is given to the students and they came from the university and start to do and deliver an outcome. But in that kind of project, they involve the community from the start and start to develop, to problematize what is going on. So involving the people implies measuring the impact as long the project is being developed. So we are testing that. And it is like a learning experience for us as well. So it's a life project that is going on. So part of what you do, Angela, we are trying to incorporate in the project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so these distinctions, at the end of the day, I brought it here because we wanted now to change the identity of the university. And to do that, what we wanted to do is to start changing the organizational relationships of the roles in the university. So I would like to show what are we going to do. Well, we started to do it right now. This is just one example to show in a different domain how the identity emerges from organizational relationships. So here is the game called Tangram. Perhaps you all know that you can form different forms using the same parts. Here you can see a square, but now you cannot see the square. And the parts are exactly the same. What I have done is to change the spatial relationships among the components of the tangram. So something similar, metaphorically, can happen in organizations. Those are all different identities, forms that could be formed using the same 6 pieces of the tangram. So the organization structure, what is that? We said that the basic components of an organization are its organizational roles in interaction, not the people, but the roles they embody. So professors, students, committees, etc. So the structure of an organization is defined by the roles and the resources that constitute the organizational relationships at any moment in time. So that allows us to start making changes in the original structure, formal structure of the university. It was quite hierarchical, to more recursive structure. So what normally happens in university, and that happened in the Universidad de Ibagué in structural terms, is that the organization structure of the university was related to the Diderot tree of knowledge. So in the tree of knowledge, there is a fragmentation of knowledge, and here we have a fragmentation of learning, because we have faculties, schools related to disciplines. So the School of Engineering, School of Law, School, and so on. And also the programs. You have a computer science program, economic program, and so on. And also professors belongs to a program. Therefore, a professor belongs to a school. And that is what we wanted to change. So the way we started to do it is by starting to talk about the university in different terms. So we say, okay, what we want to create are not schools, but traditional schools, but learning schools. And in a minute, I will explain what we mean by that. But also, we want to create research institutes, and we want to create think tanks. And of course, we will have an administrative support for all of that. But the first change is that while students will remain belonging to the learning schools, the professors will belong to a research institute or to a think tank. Now, professors belong to a school or to a particular academic program. If you ask a professor in the University of Ibagué where you belong to, he will say, I am a system engineer professor. I belong to the Department of Systems Engineer. And we wanted to change that sense of belonging. So schools organize learning processes around complex problems. Schools will not organize themselves around disciplines. Then research institutes co-produce knowledge to develop local capabilities. I will explain that in a moment. And think tanks open up new possibilities for action. But research institute and think tanks organize themselves around complex problems. And complex problems are not disciplinary problems. Therefore, the professors who join a research institute or to join a think tank are professors that comes from different disciplines. But they come together to be part of that research institute or to be part of that think tank because they share the passion to understand a particular complex problem. For instance, one of the institutes we start to develop is called bioeconomy regional. Let's see how to translate that. Bioeconomy Regional Institute. I'm not sure if the translation is quite accurate, but this is an institute whose focus is to develop projects in order for the Tolima region to develop around the use of their biodiversity. Okay? So for instance, one particular project we are developing right now is that we are producing pellets for 3D printers, filament, using residual parts of the rice. I don't know if that was clear. The Department of Tolima is the main producer of rice in the country. But in the production process of the rice, there is part of this, of the plant that is called the cascarilla, that nobody knows how to do, what to do with that. Normally what people do is that they burn that, use that as a burning fuel, and that produces contamination, actually. But what we did with the support of the research group at Los Andes in the engineering faculty, we developed jointly a process to use that part of the rice plant to combine that with some plastic in order to produce the filaments used by 3D printers. So that is one example of how we can use biodiversity, in this case, biomass produced by biological processes in the department in order to start new industries. This is one example.
I think that Pam had a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious if there's like a formal process for the experiences that students in the municipality and the professors gain during the projects that formally have a feedback loop into the curriculum so that, you know, it's kind of a living organism where you will, you know, teach classes differently over time as you learn more about what the problems are and you know, kind of like the lessons learned.
Yeah, exactly. In a minute, I will mention that.
Exactly. Oh, okay, that. Great. I set you up well then. Okay.
Yeah. So the point here is that professors now will belong to a research institute or to a think tank. So you see, the natural way of relations between professors now are the research institute or the think tanks that are not organized around disciplines. And that's, I think, is a very important change. Because what will start to happen, and this is our hypothesis, is that professors will start to talk not only around their disciplines, they will start to talk about the problems they share in the institute. But they will start talking about that with people trained in different disciplines. So in the Bioeconomy Research Institute, for instance, we have engineers, we have people from economy, we have people from administration, we have people from design, and so on. So the way the topics will start to talk and the way they will start to approach those topics will allows them to move away from their own disciplines. We'll see what happened.
Alfredo,
yes, Angela.
Wants to ask a question, Alfredo. Alfredo del Valle.
Yes. Alfonso, very interesting what you are presenting. I have just had a difficulty with a university with which I have been involved. I'm not a member of that, but we jointly did a project with British partners, through which we developed a new model to deal with erosion, soil erosion. Erosion is an extremely severe problem all over the world.
Yeah.
We developed a model and we did a pilot project, a 2-year pilot project with quite interesting results for designing a structure, a strategy. And we do have a strategy with 61 concrete innovations and so on. The point I am coming to the question is the following. That first phase of the project is over, completed, successful, and we want to move now to the implementation of the strategy. And that takes organizing and putting together a governance system. And the university, the regional university, Universidad de O'Higgins, that's south of Santiago, yeah. Is the one that collaborated with us. But we had a final difficulty in the following point. There was a very brilliant researcher. She's a PhD in agronomy. She works with new concepts about soil as an extremely complex ecosystem. Yeah, but at the same time, we have to change culture regarding soil and so on. So this is all that's involved here. But what was our final problem? The other favorable point was money, good money available at the region to do a 3-year project in order to implement the strategy and to generate permanent funds for implementing that, for implementing the innovation. But we came to one very single point, and now I come to the question. That brilliant young woman, yeah, was the key person to do this. And she finally said, I'm sorry, I cannot be in charge of this project because the evaluation of my academic career requires that I publish and publish and publish, and I cannot work for the region. Yeah, I cannot devote time to that. Yeah, and I'm sure you understand this. Yeah. Now they also have the institutes and schools separated. Yeah, have the same idea, but they don't have the think tanks. Yeah, and that's why I love. Obviously, this project would be a project for a think tank. Yeah, but I think you get my question. How do you manage that problem of career evaluation? Yeah. In Chile, I'm sure in Colombia, the government puts a lot of money into universities so that they publish and publish and publish. But whatever they published internationally does not necessarily benefit the people around the same university. So I think you have the point clear, Alfonso.
Yeah.
Views
quite
about
clear,
this.
quite clear the point, Alfredo. Well, because what we are doing is a radical change in the whole structure of the organization. We of course are changing the evaluation system. Actually, we are changing the how do they call it in English? In Spanish is the estatuto profesoral. Is the
Professional statute or something.
The professors' norms that they have to. Is the policy of the university who actually describe the academic career in the university. So a professor start as an assistant professor, and he or she can go to full professor, but they have to pass some examinations across the process. And we used to have different criteria to do that examination, including the publications and so on. So we changed all that. If we change the whole structure of the university, we have to change all the internal regulations for that. So I think that is a problem. If we do some changes of the structure, change the culture, and do not change the internal regulations, because that will happen, will lead to what that professor said. I cannot do that because I will be wrongly evaluated. So all that has to be coherent. Okay, I will spin up a bit. So here is now the structure of the curriculum that I mentioned before. Now I will mention it right now. 10 years ago, the university also moved from a content-based teaching and learning to a competency-based learning. And that implies that a competency is understood as a set of knowledge, abilities, attitudes, and values, all together, working in harmony to develop a particular competency. So we do that change, and that implies changing the way teachers approach teaching, the pedagogy changes, and so on. So you can see the different competencies that we want students to develop, from general competencies to professional and disciplinary competencies. And at the end, you can see the peace and region semester. But what we are doing right now is adding something in addition to that. And the first thing we added is called the learning paths. So students in any time can actually decide to follow a particular learning path. And a learning path means they have to take between 10 and 15 academic credits to develop particular and additional competencies. And then they will get a certificate for that before they finish their career. And we are doing that because, as I mentioned before, most of our students are from low-income families. So it's quite difficult for them to stay 5 years studying, paying the fees without producing any money for them or for their families. So most of them, by the middle of the career, they start to work because they need to get money. And normally they work in something totally different from what they are studying. So their life is very different, difficult. So by doing that, by opening up this learning path, what we want them to do is that at the same time they are studying a particular career, they can start that particular training, and they can get at the end a certificate. For instance, we signed an agreement with Amazon Educate. And in Amazon Educate, we are offering 12 courses, short courses, about 4 modules, 1 year for students. They can develop particular competencies for cloud programming. But when they finish that, they get the certificate. So they can actually use the certificate to join in projects that are run by companies around the world. So the agreement we signed with Amazon allow us that we are going to know the database that Amazon has from different companies in the world that need people certificated in those competencies to develop part of the code of some of the projects they are doing. In that way, those students who get that certificate could start working, being students, could start gaining some money, but at the same time, they can continue their studies because what they are working on is similar to what they are studying. So we start to do that this coming semester. We will start to offer that kind of certificate. And we are signing similar agreements with IBM, with Cisco, mainly in the technological area. But also we want to do that with Six Sigma in the industrial engineering program, also with administrative and so on. The other learning path is for people, students who want to become social entrepreneurs. And they can take a path to prepare them to do that. And they can start doing those kind of programs helped by the university while being students. And then we want to do that for people who want to develop entrepreneurial skills. The other thing is that we are making the distinction between dimensions of the learning process. So we talk about ethical dimension, regional dimension, international dimension, and transdisciplinary dimension. So a dimension is something that could be developed in one particular course. So for instance, we can take a course in optimization in industrial engineering, and we can train the professor to do some changes in the program of the course to incorporate the ethical dimension related to the optimization processes in organizations. So the professor changed that, adjust the program, add an additional view to evaluate the competency of the students, including the ethical dimension of that particular course, and so on. So regarding the question that was asked by Elena, I think a few minutes ago, the regional component of the courses, the regional dimensions refers to that. So we can have different courses in the university for different academic programs that the professor incorporates the regional dimension during the development of the course. For instance, students have to go to a particular municipality and start working with people in the municipality, learn how to talk with them, how to work with them, and so on. So in that kind of courses, students start to prepare themselves when they have to go and live in the municipality. The regional dimension is incorporated into that particular course. But in doing that is the way the feedback looks, because the courses start to incorporate that dimension, the dimension of what is going on in the region of the university. Same happened with the international dimension, and same happened with the transdisciplinary dimension. For transdisciplinarity, for instance, what we are developing are courses in which the pedagogy is based in challenge. So what students has to do is that they join together from different disciplines at the beginning. This is by courses at the end of their careers, and they are put. They have to face a challenge. Challenge is a complex problem. It's not a disciplinary problem. And they have to work together in interdisciplinary teams at the beginning, but in order to learn how to approach in a transdisciplinary way that particular challenge. And that challenge is not invented by the professor. That challenge came from a company or the department, or that challenge came from a public institution, or it's a challenge that comes from a social organization. So that is the way we will start to articulate the regular courses of the university with all these 4 dimensions that we wanted to incorporate in the learning of the students. And then there is a necessity regarding the curriculum alignment of the whole process, because we wanted that the professional profile of each career that is related with the development of particular competencies from the students, that is related to learning outcomes from particular courses, so is related to the way professor has to evaluate those learning outcomes for those competencies, who are very different from the traditional grading system, and how to gather evidences that that learning is actually taking place in each student. All that data has to be collected. So we actually just bought an information system developed in Chile that is called UImprove, that uses data analytics to gather all that kind of information. And we can use that as a feedback mechanism for the professors in a particular course, for a program, academic program, to see the whole curricula and its articulation, and for the whole university as well. And finally, and regarding the pandemic, we are moving to a hybrid mode university. So we are combining face-to-face courses with online, synchronous, and asynchronous courses. In the first semester, most of the courses will be face-to-face. By the end of the career, most of the courses, we will move them to online approach. So regarding knowledge production, research, we could say that knowledge production could be related to the way we approach problems. So disciplinary problems, normally we can approach them by a disciplinary and multidisciplinary research. Ill-defined problems could be approached by an interdisciplinary research, but complex problems are approached by transdisciplinary research. And this is what we wanted to do. And what we want to do, that kind of research, to promote transdisciplinary research, to learn how to do that, is precisely in the research institutes. So the way to manage the research in those institutes is going to be using this approach by Mariana Mazzucato. That is a mission-oriented research approach. So in general terms, we say that a mission is formulated in terms of achievable dreams with precise goals in a temporal span, like the mission to the moon. This is the one way to illustrate the concept. Each mission generates a social movement around the materialization of a collective dream, and not around solving a particular problem. And this is quite important, because one of the goals of each research institute is to define its mission. but the mission they define as to promote the social movement. So I mentioned that the first institute we are developing right now is the Bioeconomic Development Institute. And the projects we are developing, like the one I mentioned, with the use of the rice biomass and residual biomass, we need to involve people in doing that. So we need to start like a movement, social movement on all the chain of the rice production in the department in order to move in that direction. The other project we started a few months ago is called aquaponics system. So we wanted to develop a system to produce fishes and to produce plants, but doing that at the same time, incorporating the two systems by recirculating water. And this has been done in the Leibniz Institute of Fishery in Berlin. So we make an agreement with the Berlin Institute, and we started the project 2 months ago. But of course, that implies a change of how people in the department used to cultivate fishes. They used to do that in ponds, and they contaminate quite a lot the rivers. And now what we are proposing to cultivate fishes in tanks is quite different. But by recirculating the water, they do not contaminate the rivers, but they increase by 10 the production of fishes. But also they can produce plants at the same time. And they can start to organize as cooperatives and so on. So it's a social movement that we started to do in order to develop that kind of research, following this idea of a mission-oriented research. Of course, that kind of research facilitates the simultaneous development of basic and applied research. They promote innovation processes and entrepreneurship, and it facilitates the development of community-based research. That is to incorporate people in the whole process of doing the research. So for instance, Alfredo mentioned a project about soil erosion, but that project at the end of the day has to incorporate people because it's related to how people cultivate, for instance, or take care of the trees and so on. So involving the people from the beginning of the project for us, from our point of view, is quite important. It is not enough to involve them at the end, but from the beginning of the project. So this institute, in fact, has to do that kind of research. And finally, a think tank. We said that the purpose of the think tank is to contribute to understand complex social problems from a transdisciplinary approach, but to offer alternative ways of action. So the outcome of this kind of research are white papers to enrich public debate that allows the formulation of public policy. So in terms of methodology, think tanks promote inclusive conversational spaces to critically study social issues of concern. So public debates, open dialogues are some of the tools being used. Relevant topics for a think tank are regional development, social justice, deliberative democracy, corruption, and so on. So while a research institute carry out a mission, so the research institute has to do the research until the state of the situation changes. So it's not only to produce papers about what to do. The research institute has to deliver the change, that's how it's so important to involve people, has to produce change, while the think tank open up spaces for different courses of action, especially in the public debate. The last distinctions I want to do, and with it, I'm going to close the presentation, is the idea of developing capabilities that comes from the work from Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum. So they distinguish between basic capacities. Those are intrinsic abilities determined by our biological makeup, internal capacities that are intentionally developed through learning processes, and structural conditions to develop agency that implies to do adjustments of the social, economic, cultural, and organizational context for those capacities to become agency. That is called capabilities, to do the two last things at the same time. Universities normally are focused on internal capacity, training people, training students. But we wanted to go a bit further and to develop capabilities. And this is the last slide. So what we wanted to become is a university that has the traditional three functions: teaching, extension, and research, that relate to a society, the local society. But we want to change the traditional schools that are disciplinary organized to learning school centered on complex problems, not on disciplines. So it's a sort of having the Conan-Ashby theorem in the university structure itself. So we will involve organizations in the process of delivering classes in the university. So we involve community, involve organizations, involve companies as part of the process of the learning process for the students. And I mentioned some of them in the dimensions that the courses will have. In terms of research, what we wanted to do is to create new forms of co-construction of knowledge following mission-oriented research instead of disciplinary problem solving, including different communities, not only research communities. So community-based research that was developed by Falsborda in Colombia, Paulo Freire in Brazil. And what we want to do is that the missions of the Research Institute and the mission of the think tanks should be related to the vision of the region. And finally, extension, we look at extension as a way not to deliver seminar courses and so on, but as a way to transform knowledge into agency. And that is what developing capabilities came about. And the Peace and Region semester I mentioned before, we wanted to move that experience, not only to send students to the municipalities to help the municipality to do projects, but also we wanted that in doing that, we start to develop capabilities in the municipalities. Because after 10 years, what we are realizing is that if the students move out from a particular municipality, that municipality will start to reduce the speeding of their development. So there is some sort of dependency with the university, and we wanted to cut that. So we will start to see how we can start developing capabilities in the municipalities themselves. That is a different way of social appropriation of knowledge.
We have two comments, one from Brian, another one from Mike. If you want to.
Okay, I will just finish with this because the whole way we wanted to start the relationship between the university and the society is having as an ethical underpinnings the 17 goals, development goals, and that's all that I wanted to share. I prepare for that. So yes, Mike.
Thanks, Alfonso. So happens I've read Mazzucato's book. I think it's a very important book for for systems thinkers. As you know, it looks to the Apollo program and the systems engineering and systems analysis approaches, which led in large part to the success of the Apollo program, setting goals and getting people behind those goals, bringing in private enterprise, etc. But we also know that those approaches didn't work when they were transferred outside of, let's say, that kind of technical domain, outside of the space program and outside of engineering. And all the experiments, for example, in California, where that was the first time a lot of systems engineering, systems analysis had tried to transfer it, and it didn't work in the social domain. So there's a tendency, Mazzucato qualifies one hell of a lot. The idea that you can base progress on mission-oriented approaches of the Apollo type. She recognizes the additional complexities that come in. And therefore, I find there's a bit of a disjunction in the book. I mean, basically, if you take what she's saying at face value, and you just read the title of the book, you think, well, this is bloody well highly top-down, based upon technical systems engineering approach, and it's going to meet multitudes of issues when it comes up with social and political and other complexity issues.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And this is, of course, as you may imagine, not the way we are pursuing.
Yeah.
That's why we are incorporating that methodology of community-based research to incorporate people from the problematization itself. But I like it, the idea, like the metaphor of having this mission established at the beginning. But the way we develop the research is certainly not the way that was done by the Apollo research program.
No, she herself is much more sophisticated than you would expect, given that basic title of the book. I suspect the title is just an attempt to attract an audience.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree. There was another question, Angela.
Brian, I think Brian wanted to make a question.
I will stop sharing so I can see you now.
I don't know if he's still here. Well, yeah.
Is my voice being heard?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, yes.
Great. Can I share something on anti-disciplinarity by Pangaro?
Yes, sure, please.
So I put in the chat a book by Pangaro in which he says the following. Now, the legacy of cybernetics at MIT becomes fascinating. The head of the MIT Media Lab, Joy Ito, published an initial volley for the resurgence of cybernetics in a journal called Design Plus Science, Ito, 2016. I recommend to read it partly because it's a curiosity. Ito wants to reclaim anti-disciplinarity as a key to the future of science in combination with design, which altogether become a means to solve the world's wicked problems, right? So I just wanted to share that. And in my second chat, I have a crazy suggestion. How would it be if universities ran themselves as a VSM, in the sense that the operational units might be the students and S4 might be the operations room where the academics get together and work out what to do if students' essential variables are going critical, like cynicism, about the whole educational experience, and lots of other essential variables as well. So that's a mad suggestion, should completely be dismissed from our considerations. I just offer a bit of insanity. Occasionally, I think you need some insanity.
Yes, thank you very much, Brian. as well. I think we need some indisciplines regarding disciplinary teaching and learning. Thank you very much.
We have Jose, I think the last question, because we're just running out of time. Jose?
Yeah. My question is, Alfonso, well, I get fascinated as always with your activity in Ibagué. I know it since many years, and it's really fantastic, the advance of your approach. And now as a rector, you have the power. My question has to see with that point. You mentioned identity as something that emerges. And here is why I have my observation is in your case, I'm not fully agree with that. I think that the identity, you created an identity that with your leadership got to become real and really was materialized at that identity. But the identity did not emerge. If you were not there, I'm simplifying, but if you were not there 10 years ago or 15 years ago, this identity would not emerge. So in this case, the identity that now you are witnessing with the examples is something that was somehow created from outside, and then you let it alone. Once the organization is leaving, you can separate and let it live. But the two things are necessary. And this moves me to the other question, is the question of scaling. Your project is fantastic. I find it fantastic, as I was saying. My question is, how can you scale that to the traditional universities? For instance, all the universities all over the world, in England, in Spain, 800 years old, etc., etc. How you can transform those universities to try to move in that direction? Because I see that in your case is, I wouldn't say easy, but it's relatively easy because it's a private university, and you have the confidence of the owners, and you have the power, and you can materialize your idea about that. But how can we move this idea from this very special case and exceptional to the normal world? And the last comment is in relation to the professors. You talked about redesigning the evaluation system. And this is tied with the second question. In the traditional universities, the career of the professors, as was mentioned, is depending on publishing, etc., etc., etc. In Spanish, we call it, in a pejorative term, fritanga. When you fry and refry the paper and repaper, and because they are good, if you get that they are published in the specific journals, then you made a career. Even the thing is not useful, but it's good. It's useful for you, for getting a promotion, etc. So you talk that in your case is the same, but you try to redesign the evaluation system. How can you do that? Because you are in a recursion level down there, I don't know, the number 3 recursion level. How can you modify the whole thing in Colombia, for instance? No, and that's it. So these are my questions, and congratulations, Alfonso, for the project, fantastic that you are carrying on.
Thank you, Jose. Well, regarding the first question, I think what we do with Raúl is to distinguish between a statement of an identity and an operational identity. So when we said the identity emerges from the stabilizations of formal relationships, it's an operational identity. Of course, I can produce many statements about the identity, but those statements, in order to be put in place and change the organizational forms of the university, that will take time to do that. And yes, I am the rector of a private small university, but I'm not an emperor. I cannot do that. I mean, if I propose something and the professors in this university do not agree with that, I'm go out of the university for sure. So it's a very complex problem. So it's not that by decree, I said, well, starting next Monday, professors should move from schools and go to research institutes. I cannot do that. So actually what we have doing with Luis Enrique Orozco, that is my partner in this in the university, he is a full professor of Los Andes University, is that we wrote, we're writing a book, and we wrote a very detailed academic background of this proposal that I just shared with you. It's about 100 pages. And we distributed that to the whole university in last December. And then we started a series of discussions at all levels with the council of the university, with the highest level, with the academic committee, with the second level of the university. Now we are doing 3 integrations with all the professors and all the academic staff, discussing all that implies doing that change. We expect to finish that by the end of this month. We are doing focus groups with alumni. We are doing focus groups with members of the public institutions, with the other universities, with companies, entrepreneurs. So we are involving many people in order to enrich this model. Because if we do not that, this is going to be just wishful thinking. So it's very interesting, the whole process of manage the change of the structure of the university. And regarding the publications, yes, we managed to do that because the national institution in Colombia that regulates the quality of universities, they used some indexes, some numbers you have to check. So what we do is that we use that sort of rules. So we have a very good professors that publish very good papers and very well-reputed journals. So they produce all we did in order to be recognized as a high-quality research university. Well, it's not totally research. But the other professors, they can do different things. If they don't have the abilities to do that kind of publishing, they are joined in different kinds of projects. So what we do is to open up the spaces for all of them. Regarding the scaling, I mean, moving that experience to other universities, I have no idea, Jose, how that can be done. I have no idea. No idea. I can guess that if we can manage to do particular small changes that could trigger a huge scale of changes in the whole structure of a big university. But I think that is part of a research that has to be done. I don't know how to do that. Yes, Angela.
No, I think that Igor had a comment, but I don't know if it's just a comment or a question, Igor.
Igor?
I think that he has problem with his speaker again. Okay, good.
Hear me now?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, good. No?
Yes.
You can?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
You know, frankly, if you're talking about academic research and if you're talking about publishing, there are many examples of people trying to do publishing without research. And I think this is malformed. Frankly, you need to do research in order to publish.
Yeah.
Frankly, Alfonso, I think your team is doing exactly that. You do provide, you do gather experiences which are publishable. So
yeah.
you have the stuff to publish it. And yes, well, I think this is the way to do it. It's not about publishing; it's about the research.
Yeah.
And publish that research. And frankly, this might be the way to multiply it, the notion of what you're doing in the academic institutions. Maybe, I don't know.
Nah,
part for getting and personally spreading the news. So congrats.
I think it's a very good idea, Igor. Yeah, thanks for that.
Well, I think that this is it, and it's been really interesting and exciting, Alfonso, and magnificent example of action research and really transforming universities. So thank you for the inspiration and for the really, really interesting presentation. Thank you very much for being with us. So
thank you for love you.
we will upload the presentation in YouTube, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. The next speaker is Professor Maurice Jols, who is launching a new book. And so he will be talking about his new book. The information is in the website. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
2 weeks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.